TheMorgile here, coming to you live from beautiful Greenville, South Carolina. Hope y'all are having a wonderful day this Saturday, April 13th, 2024. And the world is still spinning, right? As they say. Yeah, that's right. We had a total solar eclipse right across the United States, and lo and behold, the world did not come to a catastrophic end by some strange string of events, I guess you could say. I mean, I hate to say,
you're safe,
whoa.
because a whole lot of silver could be coming your way.
Yeah.
Millions Monster Box sweepstakes.
Sorry about that. Let me mute the ads. I apologize. There we go. If you could give me a thumbs up in the stream here and let me know you can see and hear me, I would appreciate it. And yeah, we survived another total solar eclipse, though. Isn't it grand? I mean, just like I kind of figured was going to happen, because solar eclipses are neat and all, but you know, they don't really do much except for a pretty interesting shadow show. Definitely provides excellent proof of the flat and stationary Earth, though, doesn't it? The local geometry involved with the sun and the moon. Yeah, eclipses, man. You know, the globetards love to try to hijack eclipses and claim that they're proof of the spinning ball Earth. But of course, if you actually just use your brain a little bit and juxtapose the flat Earth sort of concept with what we observe on these eclipses and compare that with the spinning ball Earth concept, and just logically sort of discern for yourself which one of these scenarios or models does it fit. And it's obviously, again, if you're using your brain and being honest with yourself, it's obviously pointing to the local sun and moon and a flat Earth. Because, right, let's just think about it for a minute. Well, Andrew McNellis, I don't know, maybe it's the moon, maybe it's not. It doesn't make a difference to me which one it is. You know, maybe it is the moon, and it's the moon casting a shadow. I think that's a possibility. And maybe it's something else. But what we do know is that it's definitely not a, 2,000 mile diameter object, the moon, transiting the sun being 93 million miles away, as they claim. We know that's not what's happening, because, it's observable reality. And solar eclipses are unique in all celestial events, because we have an opportunity to really, like, hands-on almost measure and observe what's going on in the heavens. Assuming that it is the moon casting a shadow, that's a unique situation, because there aren't any other situations where the heavenly luminaries are sort of causing tangible, observable changes here on the ground in reality. It's all usually done just strictly through a telescope, right? Assuming it's not the moon, assuming it's something like, the Vedic concepts of like Rahu and Ketu that's casting that shadow during the solar eclipse, even still, that's definitely an interesting thing where we're able to physically get sort of hands-on data about what's going on in the heavens, right? Because there's definitely a shadow being cast by some celestial body or some celestial object. Whether it's the moon or not, I'm not going to say one way or the other. I think it very well could be the moon casting that shadow. Although I would not be surprised to learn that it is in fact not the moon casting that shadow. But isn't it interesting, though, that whatever's casting that shadow was about like what 100 and something miles wide during this last eclipse. Because I'm in South Carolina, which is like what a few hundred miles east of where the thing was in totality, and we got some like definite effects, right? Like it almost seemed to like change the electrostatics in the air a little bit, right? It was almost like charged, I think. But we definitely got a little bit of change in the like the blueness of the sky and the electrostatics of the environment, right? But we definitely were not in the totality of the thing, right? And in my opinion, that's really excellent evidence against the heliocentric model, right? Because in the heliocentric model, it is definitely the moon casting a shadow during an eclipse, right? Definitely. And the fact that that shadow is like, what, 100, 150 miles wide during the totality, in my opinion, hands down proves that we're not dealing with a 2,000 mile diameter object transiting the sun. Couldn't be, right? Because a 2,000 mile diameter object is going to leave a 2,000 mile diameter shadow, at least, like maybe probably much more than that, but at least 2,000 miles in diameter. So that should basically, like the totality of the thing should totally cover basically the majority of the entire United States. But it didn't. It's a local event. And if you study eclipses over hundreds of years, they leave signatures like gashes all over the damn place, right? And like, you know, the ones that are very popular right now are the two that made the X, the one from August of 2017 and the one from the other day. Like they cross paths, right? But in the heliocentric model, and what sort of scenario would have to occur in order to get that to happen, right? Because in the standard heliocentric standard model, you have an alignment on the ecliptic plane of the sun, the moon, and the earth. And the shadow of the moon is basically like a stylus, like it's almost like a stylus pointing down at the earth from the sun. And the point on Earth that should be experiencing totality should be whichever latitude is currently aligned to the ecliptic plane. So like if it's during the equinox, it would be along the equator. If it's during the northern summer, it would be along the Tropic of Cancer. And if it's in the southern summer or the northern winter, it would be along the Tropic of Capricorn. And it should only ever happen at solar noon as well, because you have that perfect alignment along the ecliptic plane according to the heliocentric model. And the fact that we see these tiny little shadows just all over the damn place, sometimes even traversing the poles during total solar eclipses, to me is just hands down some of the best evidence against the heliocentric model. The heliocentric model couldn't produce these observable things that happen during an eclipse. And if you just use your brain a little bit, which I know you guys do that are tuned in here, but the vast majority of people just simply do not use their brain. But I think, you know, maybe more and more people are, especially with things like these eclipses, because if you really get to thinking about it, you know, you've got the sun, which is supposedly massive, you know, 800,000, 900,000 miles across, almost 100 million miles away, casting, you know, straight line of light, omnidirectional straight line of light source. And then supposedly you've got the moon transiting that on the ecliptic plane at one single point at the right perfect time. And you should have just a massive shadow that is at solar noon and is on the latitude that is currently experiencing, you know, the equinox or whatever, like I just described. I'm probably not saying that right, but you get the point. You've got the X and Y coordinates right there in the damn middle on both of those. And so what we experience with solar eclipses just does not frickin' jive with the heliocentric model. Heliocentric model falls apart. Now, in flat Earth, you know, again, we need to dedicate, our brightest minds and big budgets towards actually studying what the hell is going on in reality. But instead, we just throw billions and tens of billions of dollars at entities like NASA, who have been deceiving us since they were founded by literal Nazis after World War II, right? So it is a shame, but I think that with things like eclipses, especially getting the hype that this one got, it probably did, in my opinion, it probably did wake up a lot of people to the flat Earth reality, because it is just so contrary to what they say is occurring in the heliocentric standard model. But again, that is if and only if you use your brain and you're honest with yourself, right? So, we'll see how that goes. But okay, so that was the eclipse. A few things I wanted to touch on before I get started with the articles. But so as you can see, I didn't move yet. We still haven't got the trailer moved, and we're still in this hotel here. We've had some health issues in the house. I don't want to get into all that, but just y'all keep us in your prayers. We're doing all right, and we're hoping to get moved this month. But it's just a struggle, and yeah, I'm at my rope's end with this hotel. So God willing, we'll be out of here very soon. But I just can't afford it here. So keep us in your prayers is what I'm saying. Mina's doing okay. We just had a little bit of health issues this last week, but she's fine. Everything's fine, and we're gonna be okay, I think. But anyways, so let's get into some of these articles, you guys. And links are in the description. So this first one, this is straight from nasa.gov. This one caught my eye because, coming from where I'm sitting, NASA necessarily has to lie about pretty much everything that they do. And they also have to, just to stay relevant in the press, they have to make up a bunch of stories that are going to be interesting to, to the space fanboys, I guess you could say. And this is just perfectly in that vein. And it does, in my opinion, it highlights just how full of crap NASA actually is. So again, this is from nasa.gov. This is regarding the PACE satellite, NASA's PACE satellite, which has an ocean color instrument, or an OCI, which they claim detects light across a hyperspectral range, whatever the hell that means, which gives scientists new information to differentiate communities of phytoplankton, a unique ability of NASA's newest Earth observing satellite. Now, I did just a little bit of research on this satellite, the PACE satellite, and they claim that it's about 420 miles in altitude. And to me, just right out the gate, that's so hilarious, because they claim to be studying things that are going on basically on the microscopic levels in the ocean from hundreds of miles in altitude. And just the boneheadedness of that claim is so funny to me. I guess I've just maybe been doing this for so long, and I see NASA for what they are. But to me, it's amazing that people actually believe that NASA is able to do that sort of nonsense, study plankton in the ocean from 420 miles in altitude. To me, that's crazy. It's absurd. Really, first of all, because the satellite hypothetically would have to look through the atmosphere, which we all know is reflective in nature. And it would have to look through the ocean, which is, that's murky water. The whole thing is just so boneheaded. But again, we'll back up the wagon even further. They claim that these satellites are in the vacuum of space. And of course, the vacuum of space is in and of itself a law of thermodynamics violation, right? Because we have a measurable atmosphere here on Earth, they claim that space is an infinite vacuum with nothing separating these two areas. And you can't demonstrate anywhere in reality having a pressurized system adjacent to a vacuum, let alone an infinite vacuum, without some solid airtight structure separating the two environments. The high pressure always expands to the low pressure area every single time without ever any exceptions to that. And no one anywhere ever has ever demonstrated having a vacuum area adjacent to a pressurized area. Okay, so the entire concept of satellites falls apart in its basic premises. I mean, not to mention the fact that you wouldn't be able to steer them even if you could get them into this hypothetical vacuum that doesn't exist, because rocket propulsion wouldn't work in a vacuum for the same sort of reasons that, you know, you can't have a pressurized system adjacent to it. Like vacuums have laws that are, you know, that always occur. Things happen a certain way with vacuums, right? And frankly, satellites, they're not launching satellites into space. They're not 420 miles away. But even if they were, what a stupid, boneheaded idea that would be. Oh, let's study the plankton from 400 miles away. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, NASA. But, you know, people buy it. People believe it. And if you look at the thumbnail of this video, I've got an image that was from this article here from nasa.gov. So they're definitely getting images of this phytoplankton, but, you know, it's up for debate how they're actually gathering that data, okay? They're definitely gathering this data somehow. I would submit that they're just not doing it from satellites. Like, in my opinion, they're probably doing it from either drones. Probably it would make more sense to have like lower altitude drones, but even things like spy plane altitude drones could probably do a better job than a satellite that's well beyond the so-called stratosphere. And that's just absurd. They even claim that they're able to do that. But in that they claim that they're gathering this data from satellites, which is only obtainable by NASA and their cronies, right? The average Joe doesn't have access to satellites. So they can just get away with making up whatever nonsense they want to make up, and people just believe it, right? Because it's NASA, and NASA would never lie. And it's hard to be NASA. So just keep that in mind. So the article goes on to say NASA is now publicly distributing science quality data, whatever the hell that means, from its newest Earth observing satellite, providing first of their kind measurements of ocean health, air quality, and the effects of a changing climate. Oh, here we go with climate change. The plankton, aerosol, cloud, ocean ecosystem satellite, so the PACE, that's what PACE stands for, by the way. Plankton, aerosol, cloud, ocean ecosystem. Few too many letters for the anagram, but whatever. This PACE satellite was launched February 8th, I guess, of this year, and has been put through several weeks of in-orbit testing of the spacecraft and instruments to ensure proper functioning and data quality. The mission is gathering data that the public now can access at this website here. PACE data will allow researchers to study microscopic life in the ocean and particles in the air, advancing the understanding of issues including fisheries health, harmful algal blooms, air pollution, wildfire smoke, etc. So they definitely have some sort of a data gathering network. I mean, that's for sure. I don't deny that they have this data gathering network, but what my contention is they're not gathering that data from satellites. That's frankly absurd. And if they're claiming that they're gathering this data from satellites and really not, then where is all that money going? I mean, I know they spend a lot of money pretending to launch satellites, but it's either lining someone's pockets or it's just getting spent in order to justify their money laundering scheme, which I believe that's their main function, honestly. But, what am I but a conspiracy theorist? That's all allegedly and in my opinion, right? Frankie the Fixer, I am in South Carolina, my friend. So they've got these stunning images that they're talking about in this article and all of this hoopla about this PACES. And I'm not going to continue reading it. You can look up the images yourself. But I just wanted to point out just how absurd their claims are. Like, if anybody else made such claims, if it wasn't NASA, like, to me, it's amazing that they're able to get away with these yarns, these absolutely unbelievable, nonsensical yarns. But again, they've really got our culture by the short and curlies because, frankly, everyone has been tricked into believing the spinning ball Earth nonsense since they were little kids. And so it only stands to reason that, of course, NASA's studying microscopic particles in the ocean from 400 miles away. Of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? Because they're NASA and they would never lie, right? So and I put the link to this article in the description. I'm not going to continue reading from it because it's just a bunch of techno babble and nonsense. But, shame on them because I just find it really offensive that they're blowing tax dollars pretending to launch satellites and then putting forth these sorts of products that they're obviously gathering the data somehow with some other technology that they're not letting out to the general public, right? And to me, that's the travesty, that scientific progress, actual scientific progress, is being thwarted because these fucking assholes want to pretend that they have satellites. I mean, to me, and excuse the French, but my blood's a boiling here a little bit, and I will quit reading this article because I've got a couple others that I wanted to go over, and that's all I wanted to touch on that one. And we'll keep it in satellites for the next article. This one's going to be more attuned to SpaceX. You just got to bear with me until my computer loads. This was another, the rocket launch here is an image on the thumbnail if you wanted a picture reference, but you know what these SpaceX rockets look like. And I guess before we start reading into the article, I'll just come out and say it. SpaceX is obviously a dog and pony show. It's a big charade. I don't know exactly how they do everything that they do, but they've definitely got a live spectator element to their fake rocket launches where, they're definitely doing some sort of a fireworks show, or they're doing some sort of a live show for the people that show up to these launches. And I grew up in Florida, so I've seen plenty of NASA launches, and they definitely do launch something. But they're definitely not sending stuff into space, into orbit. I mean, obviously not. But with SpaceX, they're doing things a little differently than NASA ever did, I think. Because, they claim to keep reusing the same rockets. And, you can see TV footage, like video footage of these rockets taking off and landing backwards and stuff, which to me is pretty unbelievable. But, you can see this stuff live from where they do these launches, but they're faking it somehow. Whether it's, whether they're using some sort of a buoyant craft or, I mean, for all we know, it could be 100% Project Bluebeam. And for the video footage, for the stuff you see on TV, it seems like CGI to me. Like all of the SpaceX rocket launches, there's just so much of it that looks like CGI. But if they're taking any pages out of NASA's playbook, then they're using an array, like an entire, like a plethora of different tactics in order to fake this stuff. So it's not just one thing or another. They're doing all sorts of different things in order to fake these launches, and then they're pretending to gather data with their satellites. But we've already talked about that, how the satellites are a physical impossibility, right? But so this is from space.com. SpaceX has broken its rocket reuse record again. Wow. A Falcon 9 rocket launched 23 of SpaceX's Starlink internet satellites to orbit from Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station on Friday, April 12th, so yesterday. They did it at 9:40 p.m., which to me is kind of weird, like they would do it so late, but whatever. Maybe it's so less people will show up, or so it's easier to fake the light show. But they're saying it was the 20th liftoff for this particular Falcon 9 first stage, according to a SpaceX mission description, setting a new reusability mark for the company. Wow. So they're able to launch a rocket in order to pretend to send out these satellites. Yeah. And see, this is where we're supposedly getting all of our value out of blowing billions of dollars with SpaceX. Because see, they're supposedly reusing the same rockets over and over again, right? But the thing is, we already know that any sort of technology that is being claimed as satellite technology is definitely communications balloons arrays technology, right? And that's obvious. That's what they've been doing for decades and decades. So the fact that they're pretending to reuse the same rockets over and over again, doing the launches under the cover of darkness, it's slimy. I mean, it's really slimy what they're doing. It makes me kind of sick, actually. They say the mission lifted off on the 43rd anniversary of NASA's first launch of its reusable spacecraft, the Space Shuttle, which flew this day in 1981. That was a good year. And you know, you guys remember the Space Shuttle that they claimed was just a glider and didn't have any jet propulsions, but like when it would come in for a landing, you could see the jet engines on it and hear the jet engines quite obviously. But no, it's a glider. Of course it is, and it's been in space too. Absolute nonsense. So, you know, SpaceX, man, and their Falcon 9 reusables and these little generic ass satellites that look like little tin cans. Like they really must think we're stupid, man. They really must. Like, why would you even, let's just say satellites were hypothetically a possibility. Why would you waste your time and all of that fuel sending up satellites when you can achieve the same ends with other technologies that don't involve billion-dollar live factories? Anyway, so we'll get on with this one. That's all we wanted to cover out of this article, but just more nonsense from SpaceX. And do you notice that when they send up these satellite rockets, they never explode? But anything that's supposedly going out into orbit, or like that is not just going up to drop off some satellites and come right back, they all fucking explode. Excuse my language. But the ones where they send up these little generic tin can satellites just go off without a hitch every single time. Of course they do. Yeah, so wait, so to plan, I will finish out this article. So this says, to plan, the Falcon 9's first stage came back to Earth for the 20th time, they say, landing about 8.5 minutes after it launched on the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas, which was stationed in the Atlantic Ocean off the Florida coast. And really, have y'all seen these when they land these things? It is so fake. Like, I'm sorry, I don't believe it for a minute. It just looks like absolute CGI to me, and anybody that physically sees it from like standing 20 miles away or whatever, they're doing some David Copperfield shit, right? but they're not actually making the Statue of Liberty disappear, if you follow my drift. SpaceX founder and CEO Elon Muskrat wants to help humanity colonize Mars. Sure he does. And achieve a variety of other ambitious exploration feats. By the way, we're never going to Mars. It's never going to happen. You can't go to the lights in the sky, right? They are lights in the sky. They are not terra firma spherical destinations. They are merely celestial lights. Not to downplay the creator's handiwork, not to say merely celestial lights. They're actually pretty awesome mysteries, right? But you're not flying there and going on vacation ever. Elon Musk isn't ever sending anyone to Mars ever, because you cannot go there. It is just a little light in the sky. It's one of the wandering stars, people, right? Rocket reusability is a key part of their vision, helping to cut the cost of spaceflight and increase its cadence. Marvin is your favorite Looney Tune? Yeah. All right, so we got a couple more articles I wanted to go over with you guys. Okay, so this next one, so in the front and center of the thumbnail of this video, there's like a red arrow pointing to a thing. That's the image associated with this article. So if you want your visual reference to this, this is also from space.com. But they say the headline is, a NASA spacecraft spotted something weird orbiting the moon. It was just a lunar neighbor. And they've got this photo here. Again, it's on the thumbnail of the video that you're watching. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or the LRO, snapped a perfectly timed photo as it crossed paths with another spacecraft orbiting the moon. The LRO, which has been orbiting the moon for 15 years allegedly, although it's definitely not, they say it captured several images of the Korea Aerospace Research Institute's Januri Lunar Orbiter, as the two spacecraft, traveling in nearly parallel orbits, zoomed past each other in opposite directions during 3 orbits between March 5th and 6th, according to a statement from NASA. So basically, interjecting from the article here just a minute, so they're bringing credibility to their shenanigans by bringing Korea into it, right? And I'm assuming we're talking about South Korea, right? I don't think North Korea claims to have any satellites orbiting the moon, although I could be wrong. But the fact that they have these pictures of other people's, other countries' satellites is, to me, it's just to add credibility to their claims, if I'm making sense. And just out of curiosity, I'm wondering if Korea's Freemasonic population is alive and well. So let me just check on that real quick. Korean Freemasonry. Yeah, so in late 1907 and early 1908, a number of Freemasons then residing in Korea undertook to establish the first Masonic lodge on the peninsula of Korea. A charter was issued by the Grand Lodge of Scotland, so we're talking about Scottish Rite Freemasons, November 5th, 1908, and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, so Scottish Rite Freemasonry is alive and well in Korea. And so, of course, Freemasons are going to give credibility and props to Korea's space program and give a little news article nod to them in order to bolster one another's credibility, right? Because, you know, just the more news articles the general public sees about things going on in space from countries all over the world, the more credible the deception seems. But like, what is the end game? Like, I have a pretty good idea of why they've done this deception about fake space and spinning ball Earth. But really, though, it just makes you wonder, like, with these articles that they put out, this obvious, it's space propaganda, space porn. But what is their end game? Like, what are they really trying to accomplish? I mean, I guess really the be all end all of their game is to just strictly continue the brainwashing of people in spinning ball Earth nonsense, I guess, right? Because, I mean, if you can convince someone they live stuck to the side of a spinning ball in outer space, flying around in 5 directions at once, you can pretty much convince them of anything, right? And so they really want to keep that great deception going, I guess you could say. Okay, so Korean Freemasonry is alive and well. It's good to know. And by the way, so is Japanese Freemasonry. I already checked on that because the next article we're going to go into has to do with Japanese space porn. Don't you love it? Okay, so back to this article about the spacecraft spotted by NASA orbiting the moon, allegedly. So the Republic of Korea's first moon explorer, the Danuri, has been in lunar orbit since December of 2022, allegedly. At the time the photos were taken, Danuri was orbiting below the LRO, which was flying 50 miles or 80 kilometers above the moon's surface, allegedly. So the relative velocities between these two spacecraft were about 7,200 miles an hour. So one's going this way and the other one's like going that way, but they're like parallel in their alleged orbits, they say. And their relative velocity to one another was over 7,000 miles an hour. Which really, it just, to me, it's just laughable that they even make these claims. Like, could you imagine trying to snap a still frame picture under those circumstances? It's just absurd to me. The LRO's camera exposure time was only roughly 0.338 milliseconds, causing Danuri to appear smeared across the image and stretched to 10 times its size as it traveled swiftly in the opposite direction of the LRO. The LRO operations team at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, needed exquisite timing in pointing the LROC to the right place at the right time to catch a glimpse of Danuri, NASA officials said in the statement. And all that, keeping in mind that there's allegedly a 7-minute delay for any radio communications between base and the moon. So not only did they have to have perfect timing for that, but they also had to do it with a 7-minute delay. So just nonsense, man. But you know what they say, it is hard to be NASA. Hard to be NASA, man. You can just put out a picture like this and claim all kinds of nonsense about it. And these space fanboys just lap it up, man. They'll believe anything that NASA claims. 7,200 miles an hour and 0.338 millisecond shutter speed? Sure. NASA can do that with a 7-minute delay with their freaking eyes closed. Of course they can. NASA's LRO had 3 opportunities to snap these photos of Danuri during close flybys. For the first snapshot, LRO was 3 miles above Danuri and oriented down 43 degrees from its typical position looking down at the lunar surface. In capturing this orbiter with its new positioning, Danuri appeared sort like a disc-shaped streak across the middle of the image. Yet another typo on NASA's website, or space.com. I guess they meant sort of like a disc-shaped streak across the middle of the image, but whatever. For the second image, LRO was closer to Danuri, about 2.5 miles, and oriented 25 degrees towards it. Then, on the last flyby, LRO was oriented by 60 degrees to catch this final glimpse of Danuri as it flew 5 miles below. So, yeah. So there you have that. Just more nonsense from NASA claiming that they can, leap tall buildings with a single bound and all that. Just justifying their, what did we say, $25 billion annual budget? Is that what it was? 28 billion? It's definitely up there. Yeah. They got to justify all those billions spent somehow, I guess, right? Okay. And here we go. This is the article from spacenews.com regarding Japanese astronauts to land on the moon as part of a new NASA partnership. So, konnichiwa to our Japanese brothers and sisters. They are faking space and pretending to land on the moon with NASA. And again, I did look it up in case you're wondering. The Japanese Freemasonry is also alive and well. And, you know, not that 99% of astronauts being Freemasons who have sworn to secrecy and sworn oaths to lie for their lodge doesn't have anything to do with the fact that all astronauts are liars, right? So, Colorado Springs, Japan will become the first nation after the United States to land an astronaut on the moon as part of the Artemis lunar exploration campaign under an agreement between the two countries announced April 10th. So there we are, back to the Artemis. What was Artemis again? One of those Greek demigods? Let's see, I always forget. Artemis in mythology. I always forget, but okay, yeah. Artemis was the goddess of chastity, hunting, and the moon, often depicted with her trusty bow and arrow and a short tunic to aid in running through the woods. Her maidenly virtue, for she swore never to marry, was presented in counterpoint to the passionate and fiery Aphrodite. Right, so Artemis, you know, they've got to get their esoteric, you know, pagan mythological stuff into the names of all of their crafts and missions, of course, right? Because that's what Freemasons do, and that's what ritual and sigil magicians do. Okay, so at an event in Washington, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson and Japanese Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, dang, that just covers everything, doesn't it? You gotta love how the Japanese do it. The Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, Masahito Moriyama, he signed an agreement regarding an additional Japanese contribution to the Artemis program, a pressurized lunar rover called the Lunar Cruiser. NASA will allegedly deliver the rover to the moon, which the agencies said should take place ahead of the Artemis 7 mission, scheduled for no earlier than 2031. Just taking a break from the article real quick, it makes you wonder, so if NASA's doing the delivery, it makes you wonder if the Japanese people are even aware that they're faking this stuff. Or like how many people on the Japanese side of this thing, you know what's actually going on, right? It makes you wonder. Because again, we do know that the Japanese Freemasonry scene is thriving and, doing very well. But on the other hand, Japanese people tend to be pretty honorable. Like it seems to me like it would be hard to get a Japanese person to lie about going into space. But, what do I know? NASA says they will also provide 2 seats on future Artemis lunar landing missions to astronauts from the Japanese space agency, JAXA. Again, they say the first agency other than NASA to secure spots on landing missions. That doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. They say that the pressurized rover will be a powerful contribution to the overall Artemis architecture as Japan and the US go hand in hand with international and industry partners to the lunar surface and beyond. Hiroshi Yamakawa, president of JAXA, said in a statement that JAXA is ready to assist MEXT, that's that big long anagram that I said a couple times a minute ago, and push this forward with our science and technological expertise to establish sustainable human presence on the moon. Yeah. And it'll never happen. Mark my words. Again, nobody's ever going to the moon. That's a lie. And so, you know, sooner or later, if Japan is not in on the truth that you can't actually send a rover to the moon, they're going to find out sooner or later. I mean, how long does NASA think that they can bullshit Japan if that's what they're doing? I don't know. They've been bullshitting the American people for many, many decades. And so maybe Japan is just as gullible as we were for all those years, right? They say America will no longer walk on the moon alone. Well, isn't that just special? Those lonely, lying Freemasonic astronauts, it's hard to be NASA, all alone on the moon. With this new rover, we will uncover groundbreaking discoveries on the lunar surface that will benefit humanity and inspire the Artemis generation. Whatever the hell that means. What is the Artemis generation? NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said in a statement. What a weird thing to say. We will uncover groundbreaking discoveries on the lunar surface that will benefit humanity and inspire the Artemis generation. Who the fuck is the Artemis generation? That's what I want to know. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. Alpha Ceto, America will no longer walk on the moon alone because everyone will find out America never did walk on the moon. Right, exactly. This announcement, though, offered no details about when the Japanese astronauts would actually fly to the moon. It depends, Nelson said at an April 10th briefing when asked about schedules, noting that the two countries, quote, announced a shared goal for a Japanese national to land on the moon on a future NASA mission, assuming benchmarks are achieved. No mission has been currently assigned to a Japanese astronaut, added Lara Kearney, manager of NASA's Extravehicular Activity and Human Surface Mobility Program at the briefing. Wow, she's got a title. That's almost as good as that Japanese dude's title. What was that Japanese dude's title again? Yeah, here it is. No. Yeah, here it is. So the Japanese dude's title was Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology. That's MEXT. And I'm just trying to figure out which one's title is better. The one from NASA, which was Manager of NASA's Extravehicular Activity and Human Surface Mobility Program. Man, that is a freaking title and a half right there, dude. She must earn them NASA bucks. She's got her space hustle going hard, bro. For real. She's space hustling like a true baller. The implementing agreement said that several factors will go into crew assignments, including progress on the pressurized rover. So just a bunch of nonsense. I'm done reading this article. That was the main point I wanted to go over in this article. Just more nonsense from NASA. And more Freemasons in Japan, Freemasons in Korea. So how about that bridge, you guys? What do y'all think about that bridge over there? And what was it, Boston, the harbor over there? I don't know. It seems to me like that bridge getting hit by that boat, the dolly, right? To me, that looked like it was pretty intentional. I don't know. Like the power goes off in a big barge like that, and then you get the power back on, and the whole time you're just steering directly for the support beam, and then at the last minute, instead of steering away from the support beam, you just steer right for it. And that seemed pretty damn deliberate to me, right? And then the fact that old Cadaver Joe wants to volunteer for the federal government to just pay for the bridge without any sort of investigation, nothing. to me, that's kind of suspect. Like, there's something up with that bridge wreck, in my opinion. I just don't know exactly what it is. Like, they say maybe a cyber attack, maybe it was this, that. I don't know. But there's something up with it. It just seems so deliberate. Like, what? Let me know what y'all think about that. They kill people in rituals. I see no reason why they would spare a bridge. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just in my opinion, it just seems so obviously intentional. Like, there's no way you can accidentally steer directly into a post of that size. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. What do I know? I'm just a crazy flat earther. So that pretty much covers everything I wanted to go over with you guys this evening. I really wanted to check in with y'all, let you guys know that that we're still living. We survived the eclipse, and we are still struggling to make ends meet, trying to get moved out of this hotel situation. The trailer's all ready. Everything's ready. I've just got to come up with the money to get it moved, and I paid the deposit on the lot, so I just need a little bit more money to pay for the rest of the lot rent, and we're good. So we're right at the end of this thing. Like I said, we had some medical issues come up, so we're still kind of stuck here in this hotel, paying $66 a day, which I don't have. So just keep us in your prayers, you guys. Prayers go out to Palestine over there in the Middle East. Hopefully we don't wake up with World War III. You know, I just pray that the Most High moves people's hearts to sensible decisions, and let cooler heads maintain, man. And I pray that, you know, the Creator works miracles in our lives and in everyone's lives to put us on the path and align this world to the will of the Most High, and align this world to the kingdom of God. Amen, you guys. Love y'all very much. I'll see you soon, and keep you posted as to how the move goes. And if you want to help us out, help us survive this tribulation, the links are below. So one love, y'all. Be good, and I will see y'all very soon. All right. Bye-bye.